South Market, the show where we cut through the BS and we break down the Perth property market and everything that's going on. Welcome back, Shane Ross.
Shane Ross.
Shane Ross.
Shane Ross.
I was looking.
Are you Jess or Alana?
I called Shane Sean 3 times yesterday, and I was.
Whoa!
Not to my face.
Anyway, no, it was to your face. I was going Sean.
I'm just so used to it coming into that. So.
Anyway.
Come on, I'm pointing
here.
Jess. We've got
Or as
people to
Italians
talk
call me, Shine.
to.
Shane, Shane, we're here.
Yeah.
We've got the most incredible location for you guys today.
Amazing.
We've turned it on once again. Norup Wilson hosting us at the Precinct in Applecross. We're up in their incredible Sky Lounge. I actually caught up with Dave Wilson, one of the directors of Norup Wilson, earlier today. He talked me through some of the technology and what's going on here. So we're going to quickly take a little tour. Dave, we're sitting in such an incredible space. You're sitting on an iconic location here. Tell me about your two main design considerations when you're putting this project together.
I think if you break into two considerations, you'd have to focus on design and then also in terms of amenity and use. So from a design perspective, we try to break the norm. We really design for owner-occupiers. We push the boundaries in terms of the quality and the technology within the building to make it a standout development. We wanted to put in facilities that was different to everybody else.
Tell me the most surprising facilities in the building.
Probably I'd have to say the CrossFit area. That's probably a unique facility. Dumbwaiter, so you can get food delivered to your floor and you can walk out with your bunny slippers and get your takeaways.
Amazing.
Heated pools and all the facilities you ordinarily expect. Of course I've got the big boys room and the little boys room. The little boys room's got a creche with all the TVs and all the things you can watch Moana and everything else. And the big boys room is, got a pool table, air hockey table, foosball, and a theatre room that's got a PS4.
Unbelievable, you never have to leave. It's like being at Crown Resort every day. Tell me, you have 5-star green accreditation here. What are some of the key features that helped you get that accreditation on top of everything else?
Designing to 5-star Green Star is quite a challenge for apartments. We've got regeneration drives on the lifts. So as they drop down the lift shaft, they generate power, much like Tesla engines do. What really makes it a standout building is all the little details that help reduce the ongoing costs long into the future.
Obviously, you've got an incredible team behind you. Dave Wilson, Norup Wilson, thank you for having us at the Precinct today. I'm going to go and check out some of the facilities.
Cool.
Tell you what, spoilt for locations.
You forget where you are here.
Yeah.
I know, it's nice, isn't it? Well, we've got our back to the incredible view, but that's all right.
Pool table over there, wine fridges over there. What's the point of the wine fridge? There's no wine here, Jeff.
Later.
Later.
Struggle enough to keep you two under control. So,
Right.
we're going to go straight into it.
Yeah.
Roscoe, happy birthday from me, not getting a present this year, because we're bringing back off Under the Hammer.
Happy birthday.
He lobbied.
The lobby.
What do you
It was
mean we're bringing
successful.
back the hammer? The hammer's always been there. Now,
COVID says
I do
otherwise.
want to see, Chris, I do want to see when we introduce this segment, I want to see MC Hammer. It's hammer time, come on.
Copyright issues. Anyway,
What?
tell me, I hear you've been out and about. Tell me what happened on the weekend.
Yes, have gavel will travel. It's the golden gavel is wielding its power once again, Jess.
This is obviously not really relevant. When was the last time you bought a new gavel?
About 20-something years ago.
I thought so. Okay.
Mate, it's
Is it
sort of a
asbestos?
superstitious thing, you
Is
know.
it asbestos? Is it?
No, mate, it's not quite asbestos.
Okay.
I've got two. I've got it.
You got the hammer. You got the
I've
mask
actually got a golden one. I'll bring it in next week.
Please
I've got
do.
it. Yeah,
I'd love to
it's
see
like Austin Powers, you know,
Love
gold
to see it.
member.
All right. Tell me about the weekend.
Okay. Anyway, so yes, we post-COVID, we're back out there. First one off the blocks. Dare I say it was for our old mate Husey. Yeah, well, he calls everybody old mate, doesn't he? So
Does,
old
yeah.
mate Husey. Property in Trigg. The house was well and truly past its use by date. Beautiful location, north facing, next to A-class reserve, never be built out, so northwest orientation. Everybody's questioning what's the market going to do, etc. Certainly at that level. Turned up the auction, 120 odd people there, maybe some more.
Wow. All social distancing, I hope.
Social distancing was well and truly on point.
Good.
And anyway, we get the bidding going, and it sold under the hammer for $2,580,000 for an 800 square metre single residential block, which equates to $3,100 a square metre in Trigg. Is
Incredible result.
is
Huge.
phenomenal.
How far
Huge.
back from the actual coastline was it? A lot of the-
So it's in what was probably, a lot of people probably know it's what used to be Contosio.
Yep.
You know, sort of back in that part there.
Okay.
So it was West Coast Drive, and then the great thing about it is you don't cop all the noise from West Coast
Yeah.
Is
Drive.
that Trig,
so
not Scarborough
Just
there?
about to say there.
That's Trig, yeah.
Oh,
On that,
I thought it was Scarborough.
we're seeing some of those north-facing lots in from Marine Parade, the Esplanade,
Yeah.
or whatever it may be.
Mate, they're premium.
Because they're premium.
They're
You
premium.
just don't get that wind.
Because, you know, everybody for years said, look, we want the ocean-facing block and so forth.
Till you
but
get there.
Until you get there, then you can't, there's the livability
Yeah.
factor is so low. So
Amazing.
north-facing
Yeah.
with a west orientation is just premium. Well,
Hence why we write it in the write-up. But if it's not that, if it's south-facing, we just don't mention it.
No, we just don't mention it. But Jess, just
Industry
before
secrets.
we go off the auction, we are going to talk about open negotiation. One of the things I do want to talk about is obviously being an auction sort of advocate as I am, and there's a lot of people talk about open negotiation versus you know, traditional auction, and they say, how do you know you've reached maximum and so forth with an auction? If somebody bid to I don't know, $1 million and you know, and the next bidder that person may have bid 1.1 or 1.2, but nobody else bid and all the rest of it. Whereas with open negotiation stuff, you might be able to get around that because you've got conditional buys and stuff. But you know what? There's no perfect system. Perfect doesn't exist. You go for what gives you the best result most of the time. You know, and this is a classic example where you have a property that's probably all the market feedback was well below that level, but on the day, you have people, everybody understands most properties sell at an emotional value. Yeah, the emotional value of the property is $1 million. But what we saw the other day, which you don't get from other forms of sale, you break through the emotional value, and then you go into the ego level, which is about, you know, Shane versus me. I want it, you want it. We have a face off, and you get that pump. And then, like the other day, you get, which is the premium. This is the point you get to where people go, that sold for that. And we've had that result from Trig, and that is the fear of lost money.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't get that fear of lost money unless you've got the adrenaline running, you've got the human emotion involved at that time. And, you know, it's just, it frustrates me. It's so often it's not discussed or people don't think it through. And that's why, you know, a lot of methodologies, the properties are sold at an emotional value and they don't break through those other barriers. And this is just a wonderful example of how that works. You know, where you've got two people valuing a property within $50,000 of each other.
Yeah. I think with, and I mentioned to Jess, I spoke to Nikki Varga during the week, in an area that's tightly held where the buyers understand the value. They're typically not first home buyers, so they've been through that process, because auction can, let's face it, it can be quite intimidating. But I think in an area like that where it's tightly held, people know the good value, and what I tend to find, the people that pay the most, like you say, they've missed out 2 or 3, that's a really good system where first you go and tell your friend you're going to buy a property. Oh, COVID makes you put a low offer in, so you miss out. Next time you put an offer and you miss out. It's not to the third one you go, well, hang on, I'm not the only idiot here seeing value. And you go through that process, and that's when it's emotional, because you've missed out. It's not how long you've been on the market as an owner, it's how long that buyer's been in the market chasing.
Correct.
So Willetton's a perfect example. Great school zone where that works really well. So she's
And
getting some great
Nikki
results.
Varga is using open negotiation as opposed to.
But I think if she, even if she didn't use, let's forget open negotiation, there's other whatever it may be, supply and demand wins. That's it. If you've got 60 of the same thing as only 10 buyers, well, you're going to struggle to sell under auction. But you've got the pepped up demand, you can do it.
And you know, and the bottom line is, as an industry, our core value really is we work for the seller to maximise their the best possible return for them. At the moment, I mean, there's fundamentally 2 types of markets we work in. There's a what I call a buyer versus buyer or a seller versus seller market. When we're in a buyer versus buyer market like we are at the moment, it means the pressures on the buyers to compete against each other to move, you know, vertically upwards. So whilst we're in that environment, why wouldn't we do as much as possible to pit people against each other to get that as much vertical lift of the price as possible? Because yes, we all can value what a home's worth. You know, the land's worth this, the house, the bricks and mortar replacement, whatever. But the thing you can never value is human emotion and human ego and adrenaline. And you've got to put those things in the mix. And right here, right now, I look across the whole Perth landscape and I go, why aren't we the auction capital of Australia right now? It's just, you know, it just frustrates me.
You make a good case, Ross. You make a good case.
10,300 properties on the market.
Yeah.
That's down. When we first started doing like this show, I think it was 16,000.
It's
And,
like,
It's
I
very
mean,
low. Look, mate, if anyone wasn't converted to auctions, that was the speech to convert them. So well done.
And it wasn't about that, but
Well done on the sermon.
It wasn't
He's
about
back.
that, but you know,
but here's my number.
Preacher Hunter.
power to the people, I say. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
we're wrapping you up
Go
now.
Gavel.
Well done,
Go
under the
Gavel.
hammer, back with a bang. We'll travel with Gavel. That's the best I've heard from you, to be honest. All right, we are moving on. We're going to keep in the industry our little segment that we introduced when we booted under the hammer. We're going to keep them both.
Yeah.
Short and quick. Once again, we just want to really cover REWA's push to abolish stamp duty. They're joining other states, calling for discussions to commence in WA to remove inefficient taxes like stamp duty. And there was a recent report produced in New South Wales that called it an unfair and damaging tax. Very briefly, guys, what does this mean for the property market? Are we closer than we've ever been to seeing stamp duty given the boot?
Here you go.
Okay, so Shane and I were talking about this off camera before, and I think stamp duty was supposed to go when GST came in. That was the deal. Okay, but it's still there. Is it going to go? Probably not. There's too much money involved. But at the end of the day, it should go for no other reason. Look, I spent 15 years of my career, as you know, in New Zealand. Now, New Zealand don't have stamp duty and they don't have capital gains tax. But forget CGT, just focus on stamp duty. And by not having stamp duty, the volume of sales over there is probably 3 or 4 times what it is here, because people can buy and sell in and out of real estate without that sort of hindrance of stamp duty, which blocks people's buying a property, maybe doing it up and just trade it, or they buy a property maybe 12 months later sell because it doesn't work. And the biggest thing over there, and we all talk about, all the services that are put into play when a property goes through that cycle is phenomenal. All the trades and everything. Like Damien Collins, who we had on the show the other week, who put this article together. They had from Deloitte's removal of stamp duty could lead to a 60% uplift in transactions, generating an additional $1 billion to the WA economy. It
just flows on. White goods like furniture. It's not just the property transaction itself, it's the things you typically do. But I had a conversation with an owner last Wednesday night, I think it was, last week, and they're already getting hit really hard, had a big loss, and they said, Shane, we can handle that. But then for us to make the move to our next property, we've got this again. So you're just getting hit, in essence, a couple of times. It doesn't help, That along with, I think, with established, and we've spoken about this before, there's no first homeowner grant on established. It's just, all they need to do even increase that at least, and things will start to flow again. First homeowners will start to buy again, and they'll start to spend money.
Well, we'll keep up the good fight.
We'll try.
Won't we?
we can only but try.
We can only try. We can only try.
And Damien is definitely trying, I'll give him that.
Oh, he's given a good crack.
He's doing his best.
Yeah.
Nice. That was the most succinct little episode we've ever had.
Well, you only warned us
segment.
about 40
Yeah.
times
I know,
off camera.
I know. Well done. Well done. Well, it's nice to know you listen, because sometimes I think I just whatever. Anyway,
Yeah,
all
we
right.
don't most of the time.
Real press, guys. We're moving on. The real press. This is where we just dissect the property headlines that everyone is talking about, and we cannot let this week pass without talking about the sales bump that we've seen in June. We obviously saw some pretty remarkable results in Perth, especially across, including land sales, land and established. Little excerpt from Perth now. New home sales rose across the country in June following the announcement of the federal government's home builder program. WA recorded the biggest increase, up 211%. Although they noted that it was from a very low base.
Very low base.
Very low base. Dwellings up 15%, land sales up 289%. Top suburbs, Willerton, which we mentioned, Girraween, Dudley Park, High Wycombe.
Which is phenomenal, because they're not big suburbs.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
I was wanting to ask you about those suburbs because I wondered
Just read them again.
why. Willerton, Girraween, Dudley Park, and High Wycombe.
Wow, that's a big spread.
Yeah.
Well, redbacks, is it redbacks? Well, I think the couple of things that stand out to me is that obviously you do have land as a part of that. It's worth noting, sorry to be a bit dour, but it fell 36% the following week. So it went from 1,500, fell 36%. With the land sales, so there's over 1,500 lots of land sell in June alone, compared to last year, mid-200s for June. So the fallover rate, what we're hearing and speaking to, and I'm sure you probably heard the same thing, speaking to land sales and new home sales people, I've heard numbers quoted from 50% to a third are falling over. So it'd be really interesting when we get through this period to actually see what's stuck.
So just explain that, because we talked about it a little bit off camera.
Yep.
Explain the fall over and why that's
So
happening.
basically, people go and put an offer in subject to finance. A lot of them going through a key start, which is only a 2% savings through a key start. It's not a big deposit required. But I think when it first was announced, it was a bit like JobKeeper, JobSeeker, all on the rush of what was going on.
Yeah.
And
No
people
clear
were probably given the wrong
legislation.
information when they'd get the money. So you don't get it till pad down. We now understand, but even that's been limited what information's to the public. So a lot of people thought, 55 grand, I can get that, and that is my deposit. Unfortunately, you get that pad down. So a lot of those are starting to filter out where they just don't have the money or they haven't been long enough. They might have tax bills. The process is filtering through a lot of those.
Yeah. And is there an issue, you also mentioned Val's coming through?
Yeah, Val's, and I'm speaking again, one of Perth's best new home salespeople, and he just said the Val situation was tough before because you had 200 grand house on a 200 grand block. Down the street, there's one going for 370. But since then, rebates have come out in many circumstances from the builders, and in the developments, they've actually gone up in price.
Yeah.
So that alone, it's even tougher to get them to stack because there's no incentive on established. That's not going up. So the gap's getting bigger. So the fall over rate in that alone is going to be pretty high, they think. Certain areas will stack, but you tend to find those areas, and we know which ones they are, where there's probably an oversupply. Certainly not like Willerton. That's the situation we're going to see.
Yeah. It's funny because those four suburbs aren't those areas.
No, you couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't see any synergy why that would be the case.
Yeah. So what would your, we were talking about this the other day, if you had a kind of a first home buyer coming to you, you'd be steering them towards find something established, regardless of the 55. I mean, it depends on person's individual circumstance, obviously, but...
I think I'd be saying to them, look, what's your plan? You got to remember, this is not your last home, it's your first home. So I'd probably be saying, look, get into something that could ultimately become your first investment property. So in 5 years' time, what do you think this property, this landscape where you're buying, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, is going to be?
Yeah.
And if it means that you're going to be a 5-year-old home and new stock coming to market, well, it's going to be more competitive. If you get the best area you can afford and you get a 3x1 or wherever that may be, you knock it down in 5 years and you've paid maybe 20 grand for the house. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's first time buyer, the greatest bit of advice you can give them is don't buy emotion, buy location.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got an auction I'm doing tomorrow for our company in North Perth on Scarborough Beach Road, and it's an old home, really well kept, and you live in it beautifully. But it's on a site with a high density zoning, office and apartments up top and so forth. But the biggest buyer group looking at it are young couples, because they want to buy a location. They can't afford, and they're not going to develop it. They know exactly what Shane said. It's not their last home; it's their first home. But in 5 years, when they want to move on, they can't afford North Perth proper. They can afford this, but they're also sitting on a good asset. As far as the development potential. So
before this, I was speaking to James off air, and I think when we're talking about if you're over east and you looked back to WA. And you say, I think we use Belmont as an example, or Lath Lane. You look there, you'd think that must be the most prime real estate in the state. But we've got, for whatever reason, it takes time for us to get through this. In over east, those suburbs that no one wanted to be, and now they're Hollywood. I really think that's the wake-up call we need in some of these suburbs where, rather than, if it's an R40 site, rather than putting 8 apartments on it, do a bloody nice home. Actually utilise and make the space, because the closer you get to the city, yes, we understand it gets smaller, but in some of those suburbs where there's no supply of that new product, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. No.
All right, excellent, guys. Thank you for that.
we sounded reasonably intelligent.
You did. It was great. I enjoyed it.
Reasonably.
Should probably edit it out.
Yeah, I'd say so.
That's all right. We're bringing our guest on now to...
Okay, so we get some intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
right. Our guest for today's show is James Thompson from Bourkes Real Estate. Come on down.
Thank you.
James is a specialist in the City of South Perth residential market.
Self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed.
According to your mum, number one.
Yes.
According to your
Biggest advocate.
bio, consistently ranked top 1% of Australian agents.
Wow.
I wrote that too.
There you go. Well, here we are. Here we go. James, you're here for our hood highlight. We're here. We're overlooking the beautiful City of South Perth. So we thought
How
the
spectacular.
perfect expert.
Yeah,
How
thank you.
spectacular. Tell us the hood highlight. Obviously, we're talking about markets within markets. We want to know what's going on in your little pocket of Perth. It's really an incredibly varied little area in terms of the types of dwellings there. Tell us what's going on, what's hot, what's not.
Yeah, I think that's probably why it's always so popular. You were talking about the highest volume of sales in the various suburbs before, and Como's consistently on that list, often at the top. And it's because it accommodates every buyer demographic, from a first home buyer at the low end of the market for $200,000 to families and developers over $2 million. And so I meet a lot of people at the start of their real estate journey when they buy their first home, and can pretty much stay in touch with them along that whole journey right up until them buying a family home and then downsizing again. So it accommodates everyone, and it's affordable by comparison to, say, other suburbs like Applecross, where we are now, where you're paying a little bit more for the desirability of the suburb name.
When you're at areas like that where I guess there's obviously certain sides of the road or certain pockets, when you're trying to highlight that why a property is going to be a more premium price, how do you do that? Do you know what I mean? Like Como as a suburb, you've got sort of different patches.
Yeah.
But how do you, I guess, when you're sitting with an owner, what's the most important thing in your marketing that you can actually highlight that to the marketplace?
Well, because we get a lot of cross-pollination between suburbs within the city of South Perth, that is, you might see trade-up buyers moving from Como into South Perth, or from Kensington into Como. Typically, there's already an understanding of the benefits, the lifestyle benefits of each of the parts of those suburbs. So you don't have to do a lot necessarily to sell the lifestyle benefits of those suburbs. They typically know. But for those that might be coming from outside of the city of South Perth, there can be up to perhaps a 20% disparity in value between a house on what we call the non-river side of Canning Highway compared to the river side, which the residents have termed Como Beach. So if you've ever read one of my marketing descriptions for a property that's on the river side of Canning Highway, you'll hear a reference to Como Beach in the first line.
Yeah, it's a bit like Kelmscott. You live in Clifton Hills. They go, "Where's Kelmscott?" I live in Clifton Hills, and the price difference in that area, just in particular, is probably $350 for a 4x2 on one side. Let's say the
hillside.
Clifton Hills side. Other side, $220 to $240. You'll probably get one. Yeah, but again, if you don't know that, you go, "This doesn't make sense."
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense even if you do a lot of the time. I think that a lot of people have talked themselves into this, we don't want to be on the non-river side, and therefore they miss opportunities that are very good. The exception to that rule in the case of Como is if you have daughters going to Penrose College, you'd rather be on the non-river side so they don't have to cross Canning Highway. So it's the nuances about the suburbs that make it quite interesting.
You've got some bigger developments happening in South Perth that right near the river there. Is that, are people moving from out of suburb to come into a development like that, or is it still very much localised?
I haven't had a lot to do with a lot of those off-plan apartment sales. I think initially, when times were a little better, maybe 2014, there was a lot of foreign investment in those types of properties. Now, I think downsizers that love the location and love the lifestyle, don't want to leave the suburb, are probably looking to those apartments. But when I've sold apartments to people, having sold their house for them, I think you need to be really ready to make that apartment downsize move, and a lot of people make it too early. I think it's sensible to move into, say, a townhouse that might be a little lower maintenance than your house before you get to your apartment. And it works out well for me because they often call me 3 years later and say, "We're not happy, can you come and sell?"
Sound like a coffin.
God's waiting.
The Undertaker? Maybe I should call it.
James, around that thing around developments, obviously in a lot of areas, Netherlands and those type of areas, and even certainly through here, there's a fair bit of controversy in relation to all the new zoning changes and stuff. What are the zone? How's that impacting through your marketplace, and what's the sentiment through the community and so forth?
There has been a lot of opposition to it.
By locals?
Most of the time. Particularly those that I guess have become used to living in a certain way. They have perhaps been in that house since the 1950s and they're averse to change. So I can see both sides of the argument in many cases. I wouldn't want to be the developer that's first to market with a high-rise apartment development in an area of a suburb that has not been subdivided before, because I just don't think there's enough appetite yet for that sort of product, except for perhaps the peninsula down on Mill Point Road in South Perth, where there's existing apartments already.
And with the Canning Bridge development, what's happening? What's happening prices there? Are they being affected? People that might be brought there before it became known. Obviously the zoning's changed there, but surely people that brought there for a lifestyle home and then next door goes R80, R120, whatever it may be, there must be a few ruffled feathers there.
Yeah, I think if you rewind again back to about 2014 or thereabouts when they first started talking more seriously about the Canning Bridge Activity Centre area, some of those quarter-acre development sites that were previously a duplex or a triplex block that were worth $1 million to 1.1 started selling for 1.7 to 1.8.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, and you can't give away the finished product at the end, so the appetite from the developer to actually do the development's almost gone. So, and a lot of the time, those that had already bought the development sites now aren't in a position to be able to develop them. So it's gone full circle pretty much.
Yeah. So that when it does cross over, will that all pretty much go to apartments? Is that what it's looking like?
Yes, and the local council, perhaps more so than WAPC, are suggesting that if you have a development site within the Canning Bridge Activity Centre area, then you can't develop it to less than its potential.
Wow.
Yeah, so in the past, if you had a triplex block, you could do a duplex if you preferred, or you could build a single residential home. But now, if you've got the ability to build 8 stories, you can't do a triplex development anymore.
That's amazing.
Really?
Which is totally back to front.
ridiculous.
I know.
Yeah.
Mate, that is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So you're effectively dictating to people what they have to do with the asset that they own.
So it's goodbye to your shed.
Yeah, and if you're therefore having to price it in order to attract a developer to buy it, it's probably worth more as a single residential, as you were saying before, family home on a big block than it is as a development site. But the developers are saying, well, that's all it's worth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
There you go. On that note, excellent, great information. Thank you, James.
My pleasure.
Well, we're going to flick it over to Ross.
James, this is the most important segment of the show, mate. This is getting under the hood. You like that?
Under the hood. Under the hood.
I like that.
God,
I just renamed our
Wait,
segment.
well,
I
that's
wasn't
okay,
warned about
The
this.
segment's literally called 6 questions.
But
so
yeah,
we can do
we've got, you know,
Right.
With Ross.
around-
With Ross.
with Ross.
This is your life.
So, sort of, James. So, important question. So, the first one is we like to know that we all believe that the greatest learnings in life from our biggest stuff ups, our biggest mistakes. What's been your biggest stuff up that you've learned from?
Doesn't have to be from work.
How long have we got? My biggest stuff up. Wow. Okay. Where do I start? Probably not starting out in this industry when I did in say 2006, working with an established agent. Yeah. I think if I had my time again, I would have partnered with somebody that was already getting fantastic results. Stuck with them a little longer. I did that later, and I just think that's where the best opportunities are for people starting out in this business. And I probably would have brought a team member on sooner.
Yeah. I hear that a lot.
You probably don't want to know about my life stuff up, so we'll keep that
We do actually.
after the show.
That's off camera.
This is on at after 9 p.m, right?
So, mate, we're real estate agents. We're busy. We take things. We're always grabbing things. What's 3 things you wouldn't leave home without?
This is going
That's
to
a very evil answer.
I just pictured your profile video, Ross, going, we're real estate agents, we're busy. Come on, let's go.
Chuck me a bone, babe.
This is probably going to add to the real estate cliche already, but probably my AirPods,
Yeah.
because I hate the ones with the cords that
We're
always
going to get Lana
stuck.
some. She doesn't like them, but they're brilliant.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Other than the phone, the greatest invention.
Fantastic. Not very good for you though, I believe.
What, AirPods?
With all the conspiracy theories that are going on in the world at the moment, apparently they're the worst.
Hasn't affected me.
I think it has.
So far.
It has me too. I can't actually hear what you're saying. So what did I say? AirPods.
AirPods. We've got AirPods.
Socks.
Socks.
Never leave home without your socks.
Socks. Today you did, yeah.
And your pen.
And your pen. Okay.
That was
That's
totally
good.
cliched, wasn't it?
What
No, that's good.
And your phone.
No one says pen.
Yes, your phone,
Phone.
but I thought that would have been standard.
I like pen.
No point in taking your AirPods if
Good
you
we
haven't
don't
got
know
the phone.
what
Got a nice pen.
Block the
Throw
world
back
out.
to the 90s or something.
Nice Mont Blanc or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Right. Mate, what's your worst habit?
Perfectionism.
Okay, well,
That-
it drives
come
us
on,
mad,
mate.
it's
It's not a
great.
job interview.
No, that is seriously my worst trait. Yeah.
When you're not at work doing deals, mate, where would we find you? What's the after hours?
Nowadays at home with my son. He's almost 2.
Cool.
But if you had have asked me 19 months ago, then I would have said probably out for lunch or dinner somewhere.
Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. Hold that thought. Okay. What's the most overused saying out there that irritates you that people say?
You've got the gift of the gab, so you should get into real estate.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Hate that.
Yeah,
I was
okay.
actually going to say James off air.
Yeah.
When people say I want to get into real estate because
Yeah.
I like people,
Oh.
I don't see many people. It's the loneliest job in the world.
Yeah.
Right?
And I love real estate.
and
I love houses.
And I love houses.
I love houses. And I would literally be looking at a home, I reckon, maybe 30 minutes in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not going to love a lot of the houses that we sell.
No.
Yeah. And
But also fake it till you make it. I hate that one too.
Yeah. Most important question. This is for the benefit of Shane and I, by the way. Most important question. Best place to go and eat in Perth. Best meal. Best whatever.
Well, I'll keep it local. If you were to go into the city of South Perth, let's say you were going to Como,
Yeah.
and you had no idea where to go, some of the best dim sum in Perth is at Imperial Court,
Where is
on
that? Where is
Melville
that?
Parade.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Near the pagoda.
yeah, just up from in between the pagoda and Preston
Oh, yeah,
Street.
yeah,
Didn't know
Go
that.
and see Phyllis. Mention my name, and you'll get the James Thompson discount.
No, better still, just put it on your bill.
Extra soil.
Just on James' tab.
I actually haven't got one. I just put it on Alan Bourkes' bill.
Mate, Berkey.
chuck it on that, no
mate,
problem.
Berkey's still got his play lunch money from school, I reckon.
I no
So,
doubt.
mate, he's put it up there.
No doubt. I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks that.
And night out?
Night
Where would
out.
you go? Occasion? Where would it
Or I don't really like going out anymore. For dinner.
Yeah.
Santini.
Yeah.
If it's back open
Cutlet.
again. Yeah, have the cutlet if there's any left, provided you haven't been there the night before, because then there would be none left. Il Lido you can't really beat.
be? Yep.
Yep.
Cool.
And given that obviously, we'd say there are a fair few cafes in the city of South Perth. Best coffee in South Perth?
Oh, tough.
Or
Very tough.
City
I might
of
offend a
South
few people here. Can I say more than one?
You can go.
I'm trying to be diplomatic.
You
Mate, what's that little French place on just down from the Windsor?
It's called La Galette.
That's fantastic.
Very good coffee in there. Atomic down there do great coffee
I
too.
think Atomic's got some of the best coffee in Perth.
Yeah, consistently good.
So good.
There's a humble little cafe on Barker Avenue in Como called Bread Espresso. Nick, who's the owner of that, does fantastic food and coffee. Real community little hub. But you can't really go
What a
wrong
vibe.
anywhere.
Good
Vibe,
tips.
mate.
What a
I
vibe.
don't think you'd survive in South Perth or City of South Perth if you couldn't make a decent coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've probably just reinforced the stereotype of real estate agents that all we do is eat and drink coffee, right?
With earpods on.
With AirPods on and no
With
socks.
AirPods on and
And no
phones.
socks.
Yeah,
There you go.
exactly.
James didn't wear his socks today because he was in solidarity with Shane, and Shane wore Galah socks.
I did.
He had the
Well,
audacity to wear socks with cockatoos
What a
on them
glass.
just to
Might-
prove he was
I
wearing
like
socks.
them. I think they're good.
Minus 4
Yeah, I like
degrees
them.
out there.
Yeah.
It's obviously cold. Shane's ankles are cold.
Very much so.
Good.
All right, guys.
There you go, Jess.
That's it.
It's done.
Excellent. Great show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, James.
Thanks for
guys.
coming,
Thank you
Tom.
very much.
Pleasure, thank you.
Thanks again to the team at Norup Wilson for this incredible location. The sun even came out. It's been raining for 4 days and the sun's out, so we're very, very lucky. There are still apartments available here, so if you're interested, head to the Norup Wilson website and you'll find all the information that you need. Any topics, news articles, things you want us to discuss, hit us up on our Facebook page. We'd love to hear from you.
Any great results? I reckon that any great results out there in the marketplace, send them through. We'd love to
We'd
talk
love
about
to.
It's funny you say that, Shane, because I'd like to put a call out there to all the auctioneers, you know, Tom Ezzy, Kim Finlay, all the guys doing auctions, Ryan Thompson. Guys, get the information, get your results to us. You know, send them through to Cribs, send them through to me. I'd love to get the Under the Hammer as a fortnightly sort of wrap on across the board auction results. That would be...
And it's live too, which is good.
Yeah, I'd say, guys, if you're tuning in, please think about it. Get your results into me.
Maybe
or
you
to
can
the
get me
girls.
some names and I'll flick them an
Yeah,
email.
yeah.
I think as agents,
that'd
we've
be
got to
great.
tell better stories in this market because there's already a perception about things being bad.
COVID.
But it's not always the case.
No.
No.
I think how the market is depends on which agent you're talking to, so we've got to tell those stories.
That's it. Listing numbers down 9% last month and rentals were down 15%, so that can only mean prices are going
Price
up, right?
pressure.
One thing I'll quickly say, if you took a snapshot of the market right now, take the negative equity out of it, stamp duty would be good, but take the negative equity out, it would be the hottest market in the country right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
without question.
On that note, that's a wrap.
that's done.
Boom.
Actually, genuinely.
I do too.